I'm Elamin Abdelmahmoud, and this is Commotion. So the Civilization video game franchise has been around since the early 90s. We are now on the 7th edition. It just came out. The premise is simple. You take turns building a society from ancient times, hopefully, if you can make it to the near future, and you just kind of see what develops. Maybe you spend more on military spending. Maybe you're like, you know what we need to do is like build up our universities, advance our technologies. That seems like a nice thing to do. But here's the thing. Civ doesn't let you pick qualities you want in a leader. You got to pick from a list of 22 historical figures. Players forever have been like, can we please, can we just design our own leader? And Civ says, no, you may not. And I think you can see why that might be helpful right now. Like I imagine it might be because a game like Civ can be useful to think about this moment in democracy and the West. And Victoria Clark is here to talk about this latest installment, Civilization 7. And welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Listen, this is a franchise that's been around for 3 decades, more than 3 decades. How much anticipation was there for Civilization 7, where people are like, give me the new one. Give me the new one. I'm ready to do this.
I mean, there was a lot of interest for sure. The thing is, the installment before this, Civilization 6, was such a great game. It came out in 2016, so it's almost 10 years old. And that's a game that I and my friends all still play, which is amazing for a game that's been around for almost a decade. So there was a lot of interest into what they were going to do, like what it was going to be. You know, how are you going to change this? You would anticipate there being major changes when you have that big of a gap in between editions.
Yeah.
And there are some big changes. They're not making everybody happy, though. I mean, I still find it very fun to play, but there's definitely some notes that people have, for sure.
Also, can I just say, Civilization itself has changed a little bit since 2016. So I imagine that some of those changes might be worked into, you know, one would have thought anyway, be worked into this new game. Walk me through you playing Civilization 7. What are you up to?
Well, right now I've been restarting the game a lot because it has a new
Okay.
it has a new structure that is 3 acts where you go from antiquity to the exploration age to the modern age, and every time the acts start, you enter a new age, like everything kind of resets your goals. You have to pick a new type of civilization to be. You lose a lot of your armies, so sometimes you get to that point and you go and you start over.
Right.
But right now I am playing as Harriet Tubman. And I am ruling the Axum Empire, or
As
the
one does.
civilization.
Yep.
Yes, of course. And right now I'm trying to keep Charlemagne off my back. He's trying to get like an open borders agreement, but I do not trust him at all. So we're having a little bit of a beef right there. But yeah, it's a little slow going right now as I try to figure this new game out that has a lot of different things to it.
I'm like,
that
and
not used to.
I'm worried about the future of your civilization. But you know what? It sounds like you are too. So that makes 2 of us. I'm glad that you brought up Harriet Tubman because that's how this works. You get to play as, you know, one of 22 historical figures. You get to pick, you know, Benjamin Franklin, Confucius, Harriet Tubman. But there's also Chief Tecumseh, or there's Machiavelli or Napoleon. You wrote a piece for Vulture, and the headline was Civilization 7, I'm begging you, let me design my own leader. You're not alone in this. Why do you people, you are the representative of these people. Why do you want to pick your own leader? Why do you want to design your own leader?
Oh, I don't know that I can speak for everybody who wants their own leader, but
Okay.
I can definitely say that from my perspective, Civilization's not a game about recreating history. Obviously, I've got Harriet Tubman and Charlemagne beefing, so there's nothing about this that teaches you about like what happened in history.
Yeah.
And it is a game that invites people to kind of design a civilization that they want to see. Like the joy of the game for me and a lot of my friends is building, engineering, creating things. And I think being able to make your own leader would just be such a nice way to like put your stamp on that and say like, this is my civilization that I made. On the other hand, I'm a woman and I like to play as a girl when I play video games.
Yeah.
It's my little thing. And there are women leaders available. There are about 6 of them.
6 of the 22?
Yeah.
Yikes.
Which
Okay.
is, you know, that's history's fault as much as it is the game's.
That's true. Yep.
Yeah. And so there's a part of me that just says, you know, it would be so much fun to be able to craft a leader that, I'm excited to embody, and maybe also doesn't have like historical baggage to them in the ways some of your options do.
I will say, Anne, you did advance a theory as to why Civ does not let you design your own leader, and I'm very curious to follow this theory. What's your theory? What's your theory on why they don't let you just design your own leader?
So within 90 seconds of talking to people about my frustration over this, I realized, oh, maybe it's because they don't want people to make Hitler. In this day and age, I've been on the internet long enough. I've been playing Civ for 20 years or something like that, to know that like if you let people loose, eventually somebody shows up to spoil the party. And so I had this theory. I was like, maybe they just don't want to take responsibility for the way people might use this freedom. And I did email Firaxis and ask them.
Firaxis make this game, yeah.
Yes, the developers. And I asked, was there a thought process behind maybe giving us custom leaders this time? Was this discussion had? Is this one of the elements that went into deciding not to do this? And they did respond to me, which was lovely of them. But they gave me they gave me a statement that was pretty it didn't really answer my question, shall we say. They were saying that they'll let people use mods because historically you've been able to create your own character by using unofficial mods that you can download from the internet.
Right.
That only works if you play on PC, by the way, and I play on console, so that doesn't apply to me. But they also said, this is a quote, any modded content is expected to follow platform guidelines regarding appropriate content, which feels like kind of they're passing the buck to the websites that host the mod content, and saying like, well, if it's up there and it doesn't violate their guidelines, that's their issue. And so that, it's upsetting, but at the same time, I understand. As if I worked there, I would also probably say, I don't know if it's worth the hours of my life it would take to to create this, just to have someone do that.
It would be, I imagine it'd be a difficult developer meeting to say, we're going to give people the ability to create a dictator like this. Like, I have to imagine that at a certain point they go like, no, it's just not worth it for the way that people are going to talk about the game and for the way that it will distort the game itself. Like, it certainly would. I think like people have really nice feelings and connections when it comes to like their relationship with Civ. I imagine that might change that a little bit. But I gotta say, Anne, like having said that, it is obviously a very chaotic time politically. What does it mean to you to be able to play a game like this that puts you in the driver's seat of saying, you know what? I get to design a civilization. I get to be attuned to the things and the values I want to put into it. And then also like you look at the window, you read the news and you go, well, things are not going necessarily in ways that are, shall we say, optimal.
Yeah. Well, it's fun to feel like you're at the beginning of something as opposed to like the decline of something. So there's that feel.
Yeah.
And so it's also a very effective distraction. Like this is the kind of game that you will put on and you'll say, I'll play for an hour. 8 hours go by. You say, where did my life go? What's happening to me? So if you need to escape reality, it's really, really good for that. Also on a personal note, and this is my hippy dippy take.
Ready.
I love meditating on just the epic ebb and flow of human history and how things, they get better, they get worse. Time keeps moving forward. The turns keep rolling. And then everything changes again. And that's comforting to me.
I do have to say that like the thing you just said is also the comfort that I find all historians have. They're like, oh, this happens every once in a while. And I kind of go to them and say like, oh, I'm so concerned about, items X, Y, and Z. And they say, yeah, but if you like were to read history, they would tell you that this happens about every 150 years. And I say, why is this comforting to you? And they say, why isn't that comforting to you that we are actually following the very normal cycles of civilization, which I guess if you've been playing this game for 20 years, you're like, I know all about it, pal, at this point.
Yeah. Exactly. And it's not always fun to be in certain parts of those cycles. Some of us wish we were in different cycles, but you take what you can get and you hope that the next cycle is better for the next people.
I think that's a good, hopeful-ish place to leave it. And so I appreciate your time and appreciate your thoughts. Thank you so much again, Anne.
Thank you.
Yes, of course. And Victoria Clark is a writer at Vulture who covers comedy, TV, and video games. She's in New York.